Hi, my name is Jason and I'm a gunsmith here in Florida. And when I work on customer guns, I often record videos for them explaining what's wrong with their gun, the repairs that are being implemented, and why it's going to make their gun more reliable or more accurate. And I've had those customers ask me to make a YouTube video going over some basic concepts about guns. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I'm not talking how to build guns or how to modify your guns. I know YouTube is very strict about those things, and I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get into those topics, maybe on another platform. But for now, this is rough and ready. It's just me and my phone, just the way I do for my customers, and hopefully you can learn something today. I don't know everything there is to know about guns, but I know a little bit, so hopefully you can learn something. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about gassing in ARs, and here you can see I have an AR-15 upper receiver and handguard, complete upper. And I'm going to take the handguard off so we can talk about it. I've got a bolt carrier group here in the upper, and I'm going to take that out as well. Great thing about ARs is they come apart so easy. Okay, so when you first fire an AR-15, nothing is happening here in the upper receiver. The action is sitting still. It's a gas-driven system. So what does that mean? Well, when you fire a round, powder, which is inside the case, deflagrates, which is kind of like exploding but slower than the speed of sound. So anyway, it deflagrates, and as that powder burns, it generates a lot of gas, and that gas generates pressure, and it's that pressure that drives the projectile down the bore and to its intended destination. So as the bullet is moving down the bore and all that gas, fire, and fury is working its way behind it, nothing's happening here. It's just sitting still. But as soon as the bullet passes the gas port, this little hole right there, as soon as it passes the gas port, gas starts flowing up through that port into this, the gas block, and down this tube. So the gas is going down the tube and goes into your bolt carrier group. This is called the gas key. It's where that tube ends. And then the gas goes inside a chamber here in the bolt carrier group. And that is what drives the bolt carrier group backwards, also simultaneously unlocking the bolt and allowing the chamber to open and the case to be extracted and ejected. Now, one thing to keep in mind, once the bullet leaves the chamber, gas pressure drops off. The pressure spike plummets at an incredible rate. So the only time you have to cycle this action is while the bullet is between your gas port and the end of the barrel. Gas is like a liquid. It likes the path of least resistance. So if you have a little hole and you have a big hole, it's always going to go towards the bigger hole. It wants to get the easiest way out. So the distance between this port right here and this giant hole at the end of the barrel, and the time it takes for the bullet to travel that distance is called your dwell time. Now, there are millisecond numbers that are ideal for dwell time, but as an AR-15 owner, you really don't need to worry about that. Just know that if you buy a factory AR-15 barrel, they've hopefully drilled the hole at the right diameter and in the right place so you have the correct dwell time for your gun. Now that doesn't mean your gun can't be overgassed or undergassed, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But just know it's called dwell time, and if you ever see dwell time, that's what they're talking about. So guns, they're either gas-powered guns. They're either overgassed, like I mentioned before, undergassed, or properly gassed. So a properly gassed gun gets just the right amount of gas into the bolt carrier group to cycle the action, meaning unlock, extract the case, eject the case, and then strip the next round from the magazine and chamber it into the round so it's ready to fire again. And also, while it does that, this section here on the bottom here cocks the hammer, so that all you have to do is keep pulling the trigger and the gun keeps going off. So where can this go wrong? Okay, well, let's talk about undergassed. When you have a gun that's undergassed, you don't have enough gas to drive this all the way back as far into the buffer tube, extract and eject the case, and then strip the next round and fire it. So symptoms of this can be you pull the trigger and all of a sudden you pull the trigger again, nothing happens. And when you pull back on the charging handle, the fired case comes flopping out. It was back in the chamber. Well, why'd that happen? Well, This started to travel back, pulling the case with it, but it didn't make it back far enough, so it couldn't extract and eject it. So it just slams it back into the chamber, and your gun's a dud. Now, another sign can be what's called a stovepipe. A stovepipe is when you have a fired case hanging out, kind of like this, jammed between the bolt carrier group and the front of the breech port. That's another sign of undergassing. You could also have a round inside here, in the breech, all jammed up with the next round in the magazine. So those are all signs of undergassing. However, you have to be careful because those can actually be signs of overgassing too. I actually had a customer bring in a gun that he assumed was undergassed because that's exactly what was happening. He would get 2 rounds, a fired round and the next ready to go round stuck in the chamber. But what was actually happening was the gun was overgassed. So let's talk about overgassing. Overgassing is when you get too much gas and too much pressure driving this backwards. So ways to know your gun is overgassed. Well, one, when you shoot the gun, you'll get a big face full of gas as the gas exits the upper receiver. You'll feel it. 2, the gun will be kickier than it should be. You know, you might say, man, I've got a bunch of AR-15s and they all shoot soft, but for some reason, this one's a lot kickier than the others. That could be a sign of overgassing. But also, you can have dropped rounds here or stovepipes caused by overgassing. Sometimes, when this is cycling so violently, the bolt, this section here, can't hold on to the fired case. So it drops it in the chamber as it goes on its merry way back into the buffer tube. And then when it slams forward again to chamber the next round, it just jams up and then you gotta clear it and start over again. And that's what was happening to his gun. So why was it happening to his gun? Well, pretty good example. Okay, so first of all, remember, this is your gas port, this little hole right here. And this is your dwell time. The time from the point the bullet passes the gas port and gas can get in there till it leaves the end of the barrel. Well, first of all, his gas port was about twice the size of this gas port. It was enormous. So think about it, bigger hole, more gas, right? So that's 1. 2, he had a carbine length gas tube. So let's talk about that really quick. So this is a 16-inch barrel. This is a carbine length, this is a mid-length gas tube. So if we put this in the gun, you can see it lines up with the gas port here. Well, his gas port was way back here because gas tubes come in different lengths. They come in pistol length, which is the shortest, then carbine length, which is a little bit longer, then mid-length, which is longer than that. There's also intermediate and rifle length and even custom length gas tubes that are really long, but most people won't see those in their lifetime. They're made for like custom guns. So anyway, he had a big gas port back here because remember, if the gas tube is shorter, then the gas port has to be further back on the barrel. So his dwell time was longer by about 2 inches. So he was getting not only more flow of gas, he was getting flow of gas for a longer time. So he was getting a tremendous amount of gas into his bolt carrier group, and it was basically beating the heck out of his bolt carrier group and shocking the system, and it was dropping rounds. Now there are other reasons that you can have brass loose here in the breech port jamming up your gun. You can have ejector issues, you can have extractor issues, and maybe we'll get to those one day, but this is a video about gas. So anyway, so how do you fix these problems and what can cause these problems? Well, I just explained what one cause of overgassing is. Too big a gas port, or you have a carbine length gas tube on a rifle length barrel or a 16-inch barrel, and maybe it's just too much dwell time. But what can cause undergassing? Well, remember, this is your gas block, right? And it has a hole in it. It's gonna be hard to see, but it's in there. And that hole lines up with the hole drilled in the barrel. But let's say when this was mounted, it's not perfectly straight. Let's say it's a little crooked. Now this is for example, but let's pretend instead of being perfectly true to the bore, it's crooked a little bit like this. Well, remember, there's a hole in the gas port, but there's also a hole in the barrel. And now those two holes, instead of being like this, are like this. So what does that do? It restricts how much gas can make it from the gas port into the gas block. So misalignment of gas blocks is one of the most common reasons I see undergassing. Also, if you have what's called an adjustable gas block, it could be too far closed. So if this is a standard gas block, an adjustable gas block looks just like this, but it's got a little adjustment tab on it. And what that allows you to do is open and close the hole that's in the gas block so you can make it bigger and smaller. And there's often a good reason for that. If you like to shoot suppressed with a suppressor or a silencer, those muzzle devices, because that's what they are, can actually increase the amount of gas pressure your bolt carrier group gets. It's called back pressure. And old style or traditional baffle style suppressors, their job is to hold on to gas as long as it can to give that fire and fury a chance to chill out a little bit, so that way when it comes out of the gun, it's not such a violent explosion. So anyway, that can increase back pressure and therefore overgassing. So what do? You get an adjustable gas block, you close the size of that hole a little bit, and you restrict how much gas can make it back to your bolt carrier group. Some other ways to fix undergassing is to adjust your buffer assembly. In your buffer assembly, you have a buffer weight and a buffer spring. And depending on the strength of the spring and how heavy the weight is, you can tune your gun so that way it cycles reliably. For overgassing, there's lots of fixes. An adjustable gas block is one of them. A restricted port gas tube is one of them. But just know that in most cases, unless you have a gun that was machined and drilled really out of spec, overgassing and undergassing is a problem that can be corrected. Maybe I'll make a video on ways to work with overgassing and undergassing so you can tune your gun at home. But this is just a general video on gassing on ARs in general and why it works the way that it does. So I hope you learned something from this video. Like I said, this is just me kind of winging it. I don't have a script or anything. But maybe as I continue to make these videos, and maybe if you guys ask questions on certain concepts about firearms, I can, put a lot more effort in and make them a lot more focused on the questions and answers that you want to hear and have answered, so that way I can help you guys out there. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you learned at least something, and take care.